I'm doing
Hello,
it. Hey,
hello, friends.
hi
Welcome
friends.
to welcome to a new podcast that we have decided to start.
Got any name ideas?
I don't have any name ideas. I was trying to make Regal and Swimfan uh, get together somehow, but I haven't come up with any.
Like a portmanteau?
Yeah, but I couldn't come up with anything interesting or funny or cool. So
Yeah,
we'll
well, I'll
workshop
give that
that.
some thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what is this? So Swimfan, I'm Regal.
And I'm Swim Fan.
We're off to a great start. As you can see, we have a ton of broadcast experience. Um,
Yeah.
we just want to talk about games. We've had a lot of long conversations since we've known each other. I'm interested in creating content. Swinvan has some experience in creating content and is also interested in creating content. So
Content. Everyone loves content.
we love content here. So we just decided to start this podcast to see what happens. So as you can see from the number of ums I've said so far, it's going to be a little rough. Hopefully, it'll get better over
That's,
time.
that's just natural.
Yeah, get over time. But before we start
Oh,
talking
real.
about topics, let's briefly introduce ourselves. So I will start. So I am Regal. Um, I've played games. I always think back to, like, the very first time I saw someone play games. I saw my uncle playing a game when I was like 6 years old, and it was all over
Oh,
from there. That's all I wanted to do
it
for.
was all over.
Yeah, it was all over for me. Since then, in my high school years, when my parents were watching over me, my entire day was focused around how to get more games in.
Hmm.
As an adult, I had to tune that back. But since I have a day job, and my day job is an engineer, a software engineer, I have some experience in the gaming community. When I was in high school, I wrote articles, a few of them for a very short amount of time, on Dota 2 or on Dota 1 at the time. I did some casting in StarCraft Brood War, very
Ooh.
very casually. Also around the same time, that kind of all went away when I like got into late high school, college work. But I do have a little bit of experience. I did cast with Luminous, a Dota caster at my university's tournament. We had a tournament. I also won that tournament the next year. I won
Ooh.
$75 Best Buy gift card.
Hey,
So I have, and
big
then
time.
I retired, so I'm undefeated.
Yeah, undefeated
So
champion.
yeah, undefeated on land. So I have a little bit of experience, but by no means did I go full time into this. I went full time into my day job, as it were. What about
What,
you, Swimfan? Oh,
Luminous, he's a big Dota 2
yeah, Luminous.
caster?
He used to be. I think
Or
he's
he
no
was?
longer. Yeah, he's no longer part of the community. He was. He was part of Dota early on. I actually, when I mentioned I wrote articles, I actually wrote articles for a site in Dota 1. I don't think he
Hmm.
knew who I was the second time we met, but yeah. So he used to be a Dota community member. He cast the finals of the first or second international. Excuse me,
Oh, nice.
international, the Dota 2 Worlds equivalent, Dota 2 World Championships, and then I think he kind of left the scene more or less, over the years. I don't think he's a part of the scene any longer, but back then he was
Nice.
still at least somewhat relevant. Yeah.
Yeah, me. So I call myself Swim Fan, and yeah, I've been playing games all my life too. I think back to I probably started playing at like 3 or 4. I had two older brothers who played video games, and I wanted to keep uh, caught up with them. And playing, and I remember playing Super Mario Brothers, the original, and being taught by my babysitter to play
Wait, like
some.
the first one, the one where
Yes, Super
the
Mario
one
Brothers on NES.
the one where they just come down and you just jump on them forever.
Wait, what?
That's the first one, right? You're
Are you thinking of the original Mario Brothers with like the sewers where you?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's the original. We
Oh,
did have that on Atari,
I see. I
but
see.
really the first time I really started to know how to play games was the NES, and then I played some of the Atari uh, 2600, I think it's called, and we had Mario Brothers on that.
Way before my time. My first quote
That's the
unquote
one.
console was the Game Boy, original Game Boy.
Ooh.
But I
Oh,
didn't.
really?
Yeah, I didn't do too much with that because my parents wouldn't buy me batteries. So
They
I
were like,
ended
you can
up,
play this
well,
for
I have a whole long story about how that happened, but I ended up flipping that and Pokemon Gold into a Game Boy Advance and rechargeable batteries. I had a whole racket
Oh
going
wow, that was
in,
sometime later though, wasn't it?
yeah, so yeah, I had a whole racket in middle school and elementary school, you know, trading up in the world.
Mhm.
Um, but for me, it was mostly PC games because that's what I had access to pretty much.
Yeah, I was a lucky kid. I got a lot of those consoles and did not have a lot of restrictions on what I could play and how long, which is probably not a great idea.
Well,
Probably
I mean,
restrict
you
kids
ended up
pretty much.
fine. You ended up fine, right? So how where did you
Wouldn't
end up
maybe
working and
if
stuff?
some yes and no. I
Wow.
did
Okay,
end up working
that's
in
fair.
games. Uh, so there's that. Yeah, about me and my background. I went into games right after college. I studied for business and marketing, and so I went into marketing for. First, I started at Electronic Arts, working on the Command and Conquer series, which was not big by then.
You
Sort of
caught
a
it at the tail end. I see.
yes, Command and Conquer 3, and then the expansion to that, and also the Lord of the Ring RTS as well. Battle for Middle Earth. Working on that too. Very popular.
You you got in
Not
right. You got in right at the end of RTS then, like right when
Yeah, perfect
all the
time.
good RTS stopped being made and everyone was still trying to cash in on Warcraft 3.
Yeah, my first day or my first week, we did the all the like FMVs for Command and Conquer 3, like
What what is FMV?
filmed them. Full motion video, which was in the early days of
Oh,
CD-ROM,
I
was like
see. I
when you
see.
show actual videos, but it's very low res with people.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Uh, have you played the Command and Conquers?
I have never. I mean, I played it like a couple times, just like at a friend's house, but I've never. I don't know too much about it other than that Red Alert 2 was like well known.
Yeah, part of the, I guess, charm of all of those was that they had these cutscenes in between missions that were all full motion video, so you had like real people talking to you. And in Command and Conquer 3, they had a bunch of like low level celebrities, like
Oh, interesting.
what was that woman on Battlestar Galactica? The blonde
I
woman.
do not watch movies, so there's no
That's
way I'm gonna know the answer to this
that's
question.
a TV show.
I also don't watch TV shows.
I can't remember her name, but a bunch of people on that, and some people on Lost, and
Oh, lot.
um,
Wow, lot. Wow. Damn, I'm old.
yeah. Did you watch Lost?
I remember. So I stopped watching TV when we stopped having a TV, and that was ninth
What?
grade. But I remember seeing commercials for Lost when I still had a TV, and man, that was a
You
long
didn't have a
time ago.
TV? Wow, this is a restrictive household.
Yeah. Well, that it was, that wasn't the reason. It wasn't that it would distract me, but
Oh, okay.
we
Something
couldn't
else.
really afford a TV at that time.
Oh,
Was
I
the
see.
reason. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's probably for the best also.
Well, yeah.
Love and good
No
on there.
complaints there.
So you were probably downloading a lot of cracked games on PC then, huh?
I absolutely would never do that.
Okay, good.
Why
It was a
would you
test.
even bring that up? There's no way I would ever illegally acquire games of any kind.
Okay, good. Good we got that out of the way. So anyway, I went on to work at Activision at first starting on their shitty kids games, and then over to Call of Duty for a good amount of time. So
Wait,
I
is
was
Call of Duty not a kiddie kids game? Hmm?
I'm talking about like
Yeah, I
DreamWorks movie games like Kung Fu Panda,
know.
the game, Kung Fu Panda the movie, the game.
Wow.
Um, and yeah, Call of Duty is all the kiddies. They're just they pretend to be older. So and then from there I worked at Riot Games on League of Legends, the like spin-offs they were working on, but I left before any of those spin-offs were actually launched. But now they have some.
Unfortunate. Well,
Mostly I played on console, but I played a lot on PC as well. One of the types of games I really liked are old school point and click adventure games, the stuff I speedrun, and that wasn't on console; it was only on PC.
Well,
So
what are for those who don't know? I definitely didn't know until I met you. What are some of the games that fall into this category?
yeah, they did all right for their time in like the 80s and 90s, but they were never huge.
Right.
They're games like the Sierra games, King's Quest and Space Quest and Quest for Glory. There's always a quest in the name. Leisure Suit Larry. Does that ring any bells?
Oh, wow! I I know a
It was
little
like
bit
an
about
early,
that, but
like
not...
quote unquote adult game,
yeah,
but
yeah, interesting.
it was just cheeky humor. Really, it's not really like
Right,
that.
right.
It's not a porno game.
Well, it was like 1980 something, right? So
Yeah,
back in
yeah,
those days,
yeah.
I'm sure it was scandalous.
It was. It was very scandalous, but I played them nonetheless. I remember my stepmom bringing me home Leisure Suit Larry 1 and 2 to play.
Fascinating family you got there.
Yeah, fascinating. She figured I could handle it, and but yeah, I've got experience on console and PC, but just mostly console. But I played a lot of PC games too, like uh, some like the original EverQuest and games like X-Wing. I played a shit ton of.
Sounds vaguely familiar. What are so on that same topic? What are some of the games? What are some of like your favorite games? And that can mean like the most important or most influential games on you. That can mean games you spent the most time in, or most memorable for other reasons.
Yeah, I've got a lot of those.
Oh, I got a list. Let's hear it.
I got a list right here. My top one. I got my top 100.
Top
right here.
100?
Do
I can't even count that high.
Yeah, I played a lot of the Japanese RPG classics like Final Fantasies and Chrono Triggers of the world and Xenogears and that kind of stuff. And I really got into those. Like for most of my gaming life, I did a lot of single player games. But there's also some co-op games I played, like couch co-op games, because I didn't get into real PC gaming until
Real PC
college.
gaming.
Yeah, the real stuff. But I did some LAN parties in high school, like playing Quake and StarCraft and Duke Nukem 3D on the LAN parties, where you bring your whole computer over.
Yep. Man, those were fun. I remember I only had a couple of them, but those are some of the best memories I had in high school.
Well, yeah, a lot of fun. Everybody hauling in huge, huge computers.
We had some at like a different school, like a large location basically, and we were just there for like multiple hours, and everyone, so there was no concern about noise or anything, so everyone was just screaming their ass off.
Excellent.
Frequently. It was great.
That is great. Yeah, it's been a long time since I've had that kind of experience. And then, like I said, adventure games. I guess they call them adventure games, but they're kind of like story puzzle games, I guess you'd call them. All the Sierra Quest games and the LucasArts games, which are probably better than Sierra. The games like Monkey Island and Sam and Max.
And these are a different category from walking simulators, right?
Oh yeah. They're not just you're not just walking around looking at stuff. It's a lot of like dialogue and dialogue puzzles.
Gotcha.
And inventory stuff. You pick up stuff, you combine it with other stuff, and use it somewhere else. It's a lot of that.
So I guess we're kind of off topic here, but this is kind of interesting to me. So I played, I actually wasn't familiar with this category until you introduced them to me some time back. So they fall into a lot of categories that but not quite, right? I guess the closest I could say about them is that they're kind of like the text adventure games, but with graphics, right?
What text adventure games did you play?
Very few. I mean, I played a MUD, like a text MMO.
Yeah.
I played Achaea, Dreams of the Wild Lands as a 13-year-old, which is, if you know, I doubt anyone has ever heard of it, but if you know anything about the text MMO community, playing as a 13-year-old is not a good idea.
It was more adult than this?
Yeah. I mean, it's like it's like actual role playing, right? Like role playing.
Right.
And yes, there's a lot of adults and there's a lot of role play romance and things of that
Ooh.
nature.
Ooh,
Yeah,
good and spicy.
very interesting experience. Anyway,
Did you meet your first girlfriend there?
no, I did not, but I did meet someone who was a girl in that game that I talked to a lot, and that
No.
person, or I used that person's name as my as like a female character name for a while. That's about as far as it
That's-
got. But anyway,
Yeah,
yeah.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say it's kind of I think the closest is like the text adventure. Like the only one I really remember is like the Hitchhiker's one, right? That one's like kind of well known. But
Yes,
like
and it's practically impossible, but yes, it's well
yeah,
done.
but it's like the kind of premise, gameplay elements are the same, but just with pictures.
Yes. I'd agree with that.
Because like the
And
other the other thing, sorry, I'm totally driving us right. One more thing. The other thing that's kind of similar is like Baldur's Gate or Planescape Torment, but that's definitely not in the same category, right?
there's similarities, but yeah, like they did some good dialogue puzzles, I'd say. But
Right,
there's also battles, there's fighting, tactical stuff
right,
with
right.
casting spells and whatnot, and there's none of that in Monkey Island 2. And speaking of Planescape Torment, that's on my list too. That
Oh,
was
really?
that was a formative game.
Yeah, I love to get into. We'll have plenty of time, but I love to get deep into some of these games that have had great effects on us, and
Yeah.
what we liked about
Yeah.
them.
What about you? What are some? Did we
Yeah,
talk about the games for you?
not yet, but so for me, like I said, my experience was limited by what I had access to. Um,
Hmm.
so, in fact, so I had a Game Boy Color, or not a Game Boy Color, original Game Boy. So I played a lot of the Pokemon games, which is what I had access to at the time. I ended up, trading up and did some things to acquire a Game Boy Advance, and then eventually a Nintendo DS, the fat one, the original DS. And
Uh-huh.
then after that, I kind of had like my own money, and
Ah,
freedom and credit card to, do what I wanted. But in my early years, that's kind of what I had access to. It was that and PC. So I played a lot of Pokemon. I played a lot.
which Pokemon, like Red and Blue, or
Yeah.
which?
So I had a bootleg Chinese Pokemon Yellow. Um,
Oh,
that did not work very well. I never really finished that game. Uh,
oh,
it was like very. It was like bootleg, like the kind of the meme videos about like the Vietnamese crystal or whatever. It was like kind of in that vein.
no,
Yeah.
no, I'll look that up.
Oh yeah, you should look that up. I think it's Vietnamese. I'm sorry to the Vietnamese bootleg community if I'm misrepresenting the quality of your bootleg games, but
Okay. Pokemon Vietnamese Crystal, is that what it is?
yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so. That sounds right.
Yeah.
So I played that, but most of what I played was Pokemon Gold, and then I ended up trading that, or I ended up finagling the Game Boy Advance and then Pokemon Sapphire, and that was the game I played the most of. So my fondest Pokemon memories are Gens 2 and 3 really, but mostly 3 because that's what I ended up really
You
getting into.
got them all. Caught them all.
Hmm. No, I never caught them all. I couldn't trade, and honestly, I was never that interested in catching them all. But I did just beat the Elite Four a bunch of times, so that was great.
Wait, so your bootleg versions you couldn't trade?
No, you could trade. I had those. I had the official versions by that point.
Oh,
Only yellow was bootleg, but I didn't have a link cable.
oh.
If you recall the requirement back in those days, and I also
Yes.
didn't have friends nearby. That was before most of like the internet really, so I didn't really have friends nearby that also played and things of that nature.
Ah, unlucky.
Um, but most aside from the Game Boy Advance games, mostly I spent my time playing PC games, and probably the most formative game for me is Brood War, StarCraft Brood War.
Hmm.
I just happened to like someone gave me a copy of the game at some point, and I basically just spent all my time playing that game. And then very quickly, I discovered that there was a competitive scene. This
Yeah,
was
did you
very
play
early.
on like Battle.net or something?
I did do that, but I discovered the competitive scene when I was like, I don't know, 9, maybe 10.
Oh, wow.
I was basically just hooked from there. Actually, it might have been later than that. Anyway, I was very into it, starting then. In fact, in middle school, I made like some. We had like a technology class, and then my project was a website where I like explained the uses of all the units in StarCraft. So I was
Use
into
your
it early
existing
on.
knowledge.
Yeah, very
How were you at it? Were you any good?
No, I was not that. I mean, I was better than like an actual casual,
Yeah.
but I was not good. I was if you back in the day, the ranking system was called IC Cup. It was a private ladder.
Hmm.
I never made it past like D plus in IC Cup, which is pretty much the lowest. It's like the equivalent of like low silver or high bronze in League of Legends or whatever. So
Okay.
better than like, you know, an actual story only player, but definitely not. But
I
I was
definitely played some StarCraft and Brood War online and just got my ass kicked.
yeah.
Actually, my friend and I would join three-player free-for-all games and then just team up and kill the other guy because we weren't good enough to actually win.
I see.
So
Yeah,
that was fun.
that was fun. That's kind of the appeal of the game, right? You can the online lobby system and the custom maps were a big draw. I met a couple of
Yeah,
friends through custom games and stuff back when.
I made a bunch of Warcraft 2 custom maps, as I recall.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I also tried my hand at making some StarCraft maps. I made some melee maps. I tried to make a couple of custom maps, but I was definitely not smart enough to or dedicated enough to do something like that back then. But I tried. I also tried casting. On my YouTube channel, there's like 17-year-old videos of me casting some like 2003 to 2006 StarCraft games. So I was
Hmm.
really into it, and from there I got into Dota 1 through Warcraft at the time, through
Hmm.
just a
Hmm.
friend at school who recommended it to me, and that kind of
We
took
were you
over.
playing Warcraft as well?
No, I was never really good at Warcraft. I always say that like Warcraft 3 is one of those games that I just never it never made sense to me. Like usually I can play a game and I can kind of like really quickly figure out
Hmm.
how it's put together and what is good and what is bad. But Warcraft 3, I watched a lot of Warcraft just for fun sometimes. I was really into it for a time, but
Hmm.
I just never understood it. Like it was so different than what I had understood in StarCraft, right? It's a very unique game.
I never got anywhere with Warcraft 3. I played a ton of Warcraft 1 and 2, though, but they were a lot more limited in what you could do.
Yeah, I think I played Warcraft 2 once, but that was before Brood War even came out, right? So
I think so,
yeah,
yeah.
by that time, or even StarCraft, so by that time, I think StarCraft had taken over in the general consciousness.
Yeah, and I was just playing, for the most part, I was just playing the single player campaign because every time I tried online, I just get killed.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, same. I had the same experience, honestly. But yeah, so I got really into Dota. Like I said, I cast some Dota. I played a lot of Dota. In a different life, I might have tried to play more Dota, but I don't think
Uh,
given the family situation, I don't think that was ever a real opportunity for me. Also, I wasn't that good. But I wrote articles. I got really into it for quite some time. And then as kind of school, university took over, I kind of lost interest in trying to be that good at it. And I
yeah, I mean,
also
you got to spend a lot of time, right?
yeah, and also in the middle I played League, but it was that was a period when I was really into competitive games. I mean, I'm still into competitive games, just not playing them necessarily.
Yeah, you
But
just watch them.
yeah, I do still watch them. I watch almost any competitive games. I find it also sports. I also watch sports for the same reason. I find the
Physical sports? P
Mhm.
sports, as they call them?
P sports. Yes, P sports. Interesting. I've never heard that term, but yes, I do watch P sports that I find interesting, which is not all of them. But in the middle, I
What
play.
sports are you into?
Oh,
Sorry to keep
I
interrupting.
watch American football mostly.
Oh, okay.
If I were to rank the sports by tiers, American football is like A tier. I think it has a
Wow.
great combination of strategy and physical talent and variety. Um,
Okay.
Baseball is next just because it has diversity, uh, and then we'll go
Diversity of the game or like the
diversity
players?
of like player types. Yeah, like I think one of the things that appeals to me about both those sports is that different types of people can excel at them, uh,
Oh,
or
okay.
different body shapes can excel at them, right? And people that
Oh,
have different physical makeups. And I'm not saying that like, weak people or whatever can excel at them. We're not talking about like golf or whatever, right? But it's like,
sure.
it's appealing to me because you can see that different, 5, 6 people that are really strong have a role, but six people that are really strong also have a role or whatever, right?
Right. Okay.
In different ways. And like fast people have a role, but the role is different from slow people. So I find that interesting. And then but my tier list goes way down from there. At the very bottom is basketball. I think basketball is like the worst sport.
Really?
Yes.
Why not?
We can get into the full.
I mean, we don't have to get it
Yeah.
so off track. But
We'll save it for a future episode actually.
okay.
I don't actually think it's like I think it has some problems as a game, like some fundamental problems as a game. But I definitely understand why people are into it, and
I'm
also
interested to
watch
hear
it from
that.
time to time.
I used to go to basketball games and baseball games in Minneapolis with my family, and so before I could drink beer, baseball wasn't as interesting.
I
But
see.
going to a baseball game and drinking and eating makes a difference. No, sorry, baseball game. But basketball I always found pretty exciting. I thought it was constant action, but I never really got into sports. It's
Yeah, that makes
never a
sense.
thing.
I mean, I found out pretty early on that I was never playing a sport under any circumstances, right? So that caught my interest for a while. But my issue with, I think basketball is like a very fun game to watch on some level, right? But I think what I mean is like rules wise and player profile wise and strategy wise, I think it falls far behind. Anyway, that's some people are very angry. Well, I don't think we have any listeners, but if we did, someone's
Not
very
yet.
angry right now. But we can talk about that. We can talk about that in a more nuanced and full way later.
Sure.
But yeah, I watch. So I'm really interested in competitive games. I've played a good amount of time in pretty much all the categories. Obviously, I used to play RTS. I played MOBAs for a while. I played fighting games for a while. I mean, I still come back to it once in a while. I played card games. Card games are probably the games that I was the best at.
Oh, what card games?
So I played Magic in high school.
Yeah, me too.
I played it quite a lot. I went to like locals and stuff, and I did actually pretty well at the local tournaments. I used to walk like 2.5 hours to get to my local game shop.
Whoa!
And,
Wow.
and go there. Yeah, that only a couple times though. But yeah, that was, when you're in high school and you have nothing to do, I guess that passes.
Oh sure. I was never that good. So.
Yeah, and then I played Hearthstone. Like I got to Legend in Hearthstone for a couple seasons before I got bored. / the new expansion came out.
Nice.
But
Yeah,
as
Hearthstone really did something special.
what do you mean?
It seemed to. I mean, it just certainly struck a chord with people because it was very
Oh yeah, I have.
like even from expert hard players to very casual people.
Yeah, I thought Hearthstone was a great game, and I think the way it embraced the RNG as like a core part of the game was like a really good decision. I want to compare it. I have some thoughts about Hearthstone because Hearthstone was by no means the first like high quality or high-ish quality digital card game. I actually used to play.
Really, what else do you play? What else?
I actually used to play this game called SoulForge.
Yeah, I know that one. Okay.
It came out like 2 or 3 years before Hearthstone. I played it quite a lot, and it really was. You know how people, the same arguments that people make over and over about like how RNG is bad
Mm-hmm.
in Hearthstone. Like, SoulForge basically gives those people exactly what they want, and it is not fun.
They eliminated as much RNG.
They
as
really
possible.
did, and they also eliminated. They made the power level of the cards very similar to each other. So, like if you were drafting, you know how sometimes in Hearthstone you play Arena. Not that anyone should ever play Arena. Arena's terrible. But you play Arena, and it's like, wow, this card, like this guy has Sylvanas Windrunner. How lucky can you get? Literally can't beat this card. Well, SoulForge eliminates that because the power level of the cards is very, very similar to each other. There's very low variance, and honestly, as a result, it made for a very boring product.
Okay. Interesting.
That's a good topic for future, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I think I told you I was hired at Riot to work on their digital card game.
Hmm.
So I was going to be the guy running their marketing until they reset the game like multiple times uh,
Unfortunate.
to
Bad
what
luck,
it
I'm
is
sure.
now. Legends of Runeterra, is that what it's called? Yeah, that's what
Yep.
it's called. Uh, but that was like years after I worked on it. We were working on it. Oh, I think we talked about this. We they were originally working with
Hmm.
Direwolf Digital
Yep.
on it,
Yep.
and so I
Direwolf
worked
Digital,
with
which
them.
makes
Played it.
Eternal, right?
I don't
I
know.
believe.
Is that a current one? They make?
That is. I think they make Eternal, which is another digital card game. It's doing okay, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, digital card games never really got big in terms of like a ton of. I mean, Magic Online was okay, but it was so janky compared to something like.
Yeah. Do you know about Magic Arena though, the new online client?
No, how new is that?
It's not that new anymore, but it is basically like their modern version of Magic Online. It has its own. It has some serious problems, but I think the player base is generally large and or was large at some point. I don't know what it's like now. I know it had
I
some serious issues.
I weirdly played some Magic games on console. Trying to
Oh,
remember what they were called, but
Duels of the Planeswalkers, right?
yeah, Still with the Planeswalkers.
Yes.
That's right.
I almost want to
Great,
play those
great
games.
name.
I played, in fact, I some of my favorite card game experiences are the console Yu-Gi-Oh games. Actually, I
Oh,
like the
oh, really?
3DS Yu-Gi-Oh game or the
Are you?
Nintendo
Is
DS
Yu-Gi-Oh
Yu-Gi-Oh.
good?
No, I think Yu-Gi-Oh is a terrible game,
Okay,
but
okay.
it's kind of fun. Like it's fun.
I watched the cartoon somewhat
Oh
for a
yeah,
while.
the cartoons are fun. The car. Wait a second. What did you say? Sorry, you baited. What did you describe them as? Did you say cartoons?
Yeah, I watched the
The
Yu-Gi-Oh anime. The
cartoons?
cartoon.
Excuse me, sir. They're
Yeah,
called
the
anime.
cartoon.
They're called anime.
They're
They're not
cartoons. They're little
cartoons.
animations. The little guys walking around
I'm just
in
kidding.
Egypt.
Yeah.
Yeah, anime. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
I
mean,
watched
it
those.
kind of just taught you how to play like Pokemon.
The in the anime or cartoons, they completely have a major disregard for the rules of the game. But
In Yu-Gi-Oh.
that's okay. Yeah.
Uh,
So they definitely would not teach you how to play. But anyway, yeah, I had a lot of fun playing the console like single player version of those games. And the
okay.
Magic never really had that experience, unfortunately. But
A single player experience.
yeah.
Yeah, they never seem to have really gotten into that in a good way. I played a shit ton of card games very briefly when I first started working there, and then I just played mostly Magic and our game.
Oh,
But
nice. So,
for the
was it like
longest time, they were trying to figure out how to not run into the oft-discussed mana screw of Magic.
Oh, I have a lot of thoughts about this. This is a hot topic.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of like the CCG topic.
It is, and this is, but I think that's fair because that's very much Riot's philosophy, which I think is valid, even though it's not what I would enjoy, right? Because like League of Legends compared to Dota takes very much the same approach, which is like you're trying to remove frustration, right? Even at the cost of, quote, what I would consider to be depth or complexity. Maybe
Yep.
a lot of people don't consider that, but the goal is to remove frustration, and part of the benefit of that is that you get to attract a wider audience. You get to make less negative experiences, right? And you get to have players that put in less effort also have the same positive experiences. Players that put in a lot of effort maybe not have as many, really positive experiences, but you remove the negative experience on the front side. I think
Yeah,
that's,
you kind of rub the corners off and
Mhm,
shave the corners off.
and yeah, and League of Legends compared to Dota is very much. In fact, it was like explicitly that way. In fact,
Yes.
it was like built by people who got really frustrated at a bunch of stuff in Dota that they thought was stupid, and they removed it. And maybe,
Yeah.
Which
I
think
mean,
is,
they did definitely like steal Dota and get it to a wider release online version before Dota 2 came around.
That's
Like that was a it
yeah,
was
that's
a
true, but it's not. I don't think it's quite because Heroes of New Earth also existed, right? So I don't think it's quite.
Mhm.
Uh,
Here's the New Earth was never really big though.
it was in the competitive community for a while. It was
Oh
never. Yeah,
yeah?
it definitely never had. Yeah, it had well, it had a large number of competitors, sort of competitive scene. But yeah, it never had any casual appeal, for sure.
Yeah, I remember working at Riot early on. That was often stated like major competitors was Heroes of New Earth.
That was it back then, right? Because Heroes of New Earth was the first like
Well,
real
and
modern clone.
Dota 1, right?
Yeah. But yeah, Heroes of New Earth worked with the developer. You probably know this, but Heroes of New Earth directly worked with the developer, or was like basically directed by the developer of Dota 1 at the time. Who,
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay. Okay, I still
and
remember.
they just literally directly ported a bunch of heroes, and then Ice Frog developer decided to. I may not be getting the story exactly correct, but at some point they parted ways, and S2, the Han devs, basically just took it in their own direction, and
I see.
Ice
Wait,
Frog went
Ice
back to
Frog
Dota
was
1
working
for a
on
while.
that originally?
Yeah, so he was working directly with in some kind of like high level role for Han, and then he went back to Dota 1 for at least a year or two, and then Valve, he even had this at the time like lined up, but he then worked with Valve on Dota 2, and I think he's still there. He doesn't really have any, no one knows anything about him, so.
Yeah, what was the Dota guy that came to Riot?
Gwinsu probably.
Gwinsu, yes. There's another.
Oh, there's Pendragon.
Yes, Pendragon. That's what I'm thinking of. He
Pendragon
more
was
of a
not
community
a
guy.
developer. Pendragon was a
Like community
forum manager, widely hated in
Cocky.
the Dota community.
Why they hated? Did you
Yeah.
say? Oh, that's funny. And, well, no wonder he left.
Yeah. Well, people hate him because he left. Basically, what happened was he managed like the biggest Dota forum at the time when forums still existed, and then when he left, he deleted the forum and locked all its content and made the homepage point to League of Legends, or like made an ad to say you should try playing League of Legends.
Wow, dick move.
Yeah, people were and still are very upset just because you don't have to do that.
What was his name? Do you know his real name?
Pendragon,
I
I
forget
don't.
it.
I can probably find out.
It doesn't matter. I shouldn't be
Yeah,
shit talking him.
you probably
I mean, it's funny. He kind of like had a. Once he was at Riot, he kind of was like part of the inner circle and could do no wrong. Like he basically could do whatever job you wanted, and they would be like, "Yep, sure, you're the man."
That's
So, and anything he had to say about community or marketing was always like, "Oh yeah, he knows. This is the guy." So we gotta
interesting.
And that's all
I
I'll say
mean,
about that.
maybe. Well, yeah. I guess we should move on before anything else happens. Wow, we've been talking about this for a long time. To
Oh
give
yeah,
some
Steve
influences,
Miscon, that's right.
I do also play single player games. Some of my favorite single player games. I tend to get really annoyed at a lot of storytelling tropes. So there's
Such as
such as basically like mass market type of generic stories. I consider, I feel like, are very generic or very tropey.
sure, okay.
Fate falls into this category, even though I still play Fate Grand Order quite a lot.
Oh right, yeah, I've never played that.
Yeah, but that kind of thing. So a lot of mainstream games didn't, or they appealed to me as a kid, but don't necessarily appeal to me now for the story. But I enjoyed a lot of games. So some of my favorites are Fire Emblem.
Oh
even
sure,
though-
yeah.
Even though the story doesn't necessarily hold up or whatever, but I thought the game was really good. I played it a lot. This was-
Since the beginning. Fire Emblem, was it always permadeath stuff?
I couldn't tell you because Fire Emblem goes way back, right?
Okay.
The Fire Emblem, the first one that was released in the U.S., released as Fire Emblem, is actually Fire Emblem 7, but it's actually like
Oh,
the
wow.
ninth game or whatever, and that was in like
Okay.
that was like either like 1999 or like 2000 and something.
Oh wow, it's pretty late. Okay.
Maybe it's earlier. Maybe it's later than that. Maybe it's like 2004. But anyway, yeah, that was pretty late. That was like a ninth game. So the history goes all the way back, and I really don't know anything about the early games. I know the first game is the one with Marth. It's Shadow Dragon, and that got remade several times, including in the U.S. So, but I never really played that. But that could probably tell you more about what that's like.
Okay. Yeah, I played a couple of Fire Emblems, but it was too much of a bummer when my guys died. Like
Yeah,
I had to, I got sick of worrying about that.
yeah, for sure. Totally understandable. Also, I mean, for me, especially since those games were hard, right? Like those games were
Yeah.
made to be hard, and there was no casual mode like there were in the later games. So
Did you play a lot of would that be defined as like a tactics game,
Tactics,
like
yeah, I think it's
Final
Tactics.
Fantasy Tactics?
Hmm.
Did you play that?
I played Final Fantasy Tactics Advance. I didn't have access to the original. Tactics was
PlayStation.
PS something, right? Yeah. So I didn't
PS1,
have
right?
access to that. I hear that's a much better game. I
Then
tried to
then
play
the
it.
remake?
Then Advance and A2,
Yeah.
which is there's three, right? There's Tactics, which is the one with Agrias and Ramza. It's Ramza, right? I think.
Yeah, around I remember that.
And then there's Tactics Advance, which is for the Game Boy Advance,
Mhm.
and then there's A2, which is for the DS.
Oh, okay.
Their popularity, I think, probably goes in that order as well. But I played Advance a lot. That was like one of my favorite games. My friend gave it to me for Christmas, so it was one of the games I had, or for my birthday maybe. It was one of the games I had access to. And then, in fact, I thought about modding that game because I actually feel like I know a lot about it, but because I played it so
What
much.
do you want to mod?
I wanted to make a challenge mode, a hard mode that
Oh,
was
oh
not
wow,
based
okay.
on because like in mods a lot of times what happens is people make challenge modes based on limiting what you can do with your own character. Like in Pokemon there's a lot of
Mhm.
challenge mods that prevent you from grinding or like make the enemy scale to whatever level you are.
Okay.
I don't think that's a good or like I personally didn't find that to be a good paradigm, like a very fun paradigm. um,
Hmm.
but to get the same effect, I considered modding a mode where it's kind of like end game raiding in WoW or other MMOs, right? Where it's like you need to raise your characters to the max level and optimize them in a certain way to take on similarly max level challenges, right? So in other words, it's like
Right.
max
So it's
level.
like end game
Yeah,
content.
exactly,
Then?
end game content, which obviously games like that lack because you don't really expect most of your players to keep playing past the end game. Right?
I mean, later Final Fantasy games.
Hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, that definitely started coming on later on, back in kind of the era. And the other game I played a lot of on the Game Boy was Golden Sun.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah, if you play that was like my favorite game for a while. I thought I was much younger and less cynical in those days, and I thought that was like the coolest, best story ever. When I was
Is
when I
it
was
tactical as well?
no, it was a JRPG for sure.
I can't believe I've never played it. Like I've heard of it, but I never actually played it.
Yeah, it's good. There's actually a speedrunning community for it. It was at what's the thing called? RPG Limit Break recently.
Oh wow. Okay. Cool.
So
I should check it out.
I'm checking out.
Because I like. I mean, I love JRPGs, or at least I used to. But
when
I
you were
found a lot
also
of-
younger and less cynical.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
you get used to the tropes.
Yeah, for
Uh,
sure.
I played Suikoden 2 not that long ago, which was something somebody told me that was very like a cult classic that I never
Mhm.
played, and it had some interesting stuff, but and it's just too old. It
Yeah,
doesn't hold-
for sure.
There's so much
Get that.
modern shit that makes games more fun.
Yeah.
But it was interesting.
There's also a community for that, right? Like I saw like a Suikothon or a Suikothon go by on my feed at some point.
Oh really? I have no idea.
But that's basically it. So, was there anything else I missed? I think that's about covers the
What
most
ga-
important games for me.
Can I ask you what like your fighting game background?
Oh, sure. It's very little. I basically started playing fighting games when I was watching a lot of Twitch. I no longer do that, but back in college, I watched a lot of Twitch, and I happened to come across like a local tournament. That was back when the biggest games were Street Fighter 4 and Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3. I got really into watching those games. I tried playing both those games for a while. I played them a reasonable amount, but didn't really make that many friends that also played them, so I ended up not playing them that much. So I sample the fighting games that come out. I played Skullgirls, I played Marvel, Street Fighter 4, Street Fighter 5. I play a lot of the anime games, Guilty Gear, BB Tag was probably the one I actually enjoyed the most. Blaze Blue Cross Tag Battle.
Oh, Blaze Blue. I never played Blaze Blue.
Melty Blood, the recent Melty Blood, I played for a good amount of time. So as games come out, I'll still try them, but I definitely don't think. I have very little desire to be like that competitive. I just think they're kind of fun. So basically, if my friends are playing them, then I'll try them out. And
It's
you've
also
also
just
played
kinda
fighting
hard.
games too, right?
What, say again?
You've also played a good amount of fighting
Yeah.
games too, right?
Yeah, I mean, I played a ton of. Me and my friends played a ton of Street Fighter 2 on the SNES, and it was also in arcades at the time, so I played a lot of that. Yeah, Street Fighter 2 and Super Street Fighter and Turbo and all that, Champion Edition, all
A
that
classic, yeah.
shit. But yeah,
I also
then-
played. Sorry to interrupt. I also
No, go ahead.
played Street Fighter 2 in an arcade, but I was like 5 years old, and my
okay, you couldn't barely look over them.
yeah, and I'm pretty sure my grandparents paid the person I was playing against to lose to me.
Oh, oh, that's sweet.
Yeah.
That's a nice thing for your grandparents to do. My grandma used to take us to arcades as well, but she didn't pay the other kid to lose.
Unfortunate. Didn't go above and beyond.
But where I went to college in Philadelphia, and there was
Like basically right across the street, there was a really good arcade that was mostly fighting games, and it was like a mixture of students from the university and like just local people. So it was an interesting mix of people playing with each other. It was a lot of fun.
the games I played a ton of there are the Capcom SNK crossover games. So Capcom
yes.
SNK 2, Spark of the Millennium 2001,
And
the terrible game SVC Cats.
which is the SNK version of the other game. So I loved that game, but it was completely broken, so
I
nobody
see.
played it. And that's the only way I eventually got really good at it, because on the other games in the arcade, as soon as you started playing, like another guy would come up and like challenge you. So SVC Chaos was one that people didn't really like, so I got really good at that. And eventually I could run the machine like any people played games.
That's pretty cute. You should
That was fun.
you should see if that still exists and challenge some of our mutual friends that play random fighting games.
There is an online version, maybe Xbox 360.
for the Xbox. Wow,
It's been a while.
that's wild.
But I'd be pretty good. I learned some of the, what do you call them, infinite combos. Like
Oh,
there's a bunch of
nice.
shit that
Yeah.
was broken in there.
For me, I've been really thinking about, because Marvel 3, has not had support for a while and kind of disappeared, but it's really making a comeback. I think it's.
Oh, really?
I've been interested in maybe picking that up when it's on sale and seeing if, because it has like a decent community still, and there's still tournaments that are being held for it and stuff. So
I was never able to do well in MBS. Oh, sorry, NBC. But it looked like a cool game.
it's hard. Yeah, that's the thing, right? It like looked cool, so it was like because it looked cool, it's what kind of drew me in, right? Just because it was flashy and didn't really have to understand what was going on. But it is actually a pretty
Yeah,
good
it was
game
interesting
from
to
what I
watch.
understand.
The arcade I was at had like, I guess official tournaments, like they were
Mhm.
tied into other tournaments, and I would play in them even if I didn't know the game. It was-
That's good.
That's good.
You're funding your brick and mortar.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I played them. I funded them quite a bit, probably more than I should have. But yeah. I also played a shit ton of Time Crisis 2, the gun game, the light gun game.
Oh, like the one where you pointed at the screen?
Yeah, you're shooting at the screen.
Ah,
But
I
Time
see.
Crisis 2, their gimmick was there's a pedal, and when you press the pedal, you get behind cover, so you can dodge bullets.
Oh, I see. Interesting.
Yeah.
I never, because those cost money, I never really played them. I used to, we used to go to like a university rec hall
Mhm.
with my family when they were with my parents when they were grad students, and
Oh.
they used to have like Big Buck Hunter there.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And I never got to play it, but when no one was using it, I would
Oh.
just like pick up the gun and point it at the screen and pretend I was playing it. That
Oh,
was
sure.
that was the extent
Yeah.
of my light gun experience.
I did a fair share of that. But yeah, time grinding was a good time.
Okay, there's one other game that I remembered earlier. Roller Coaster Tycoon. Roller Coaster Tycoon.
Ooh, I played that too. Yeah.
1 and 2. We got it. My friend and I collected cereal box tops and sent them in, and got a copy of Roller Coaster Tycoon. I think 2,
Whoa.
or maybe 1.
This is what cereal?
I have no idea. I couldn't tell you.
Okay.
Could not tell you.
Interesting tie-in.
Yeah, we. I don't know. There was some kind of promo. We collected the cereal tops. We sent them in, and we just played that for a long time. We spent a lot of time on that game. And in fact, I discovered one of my favorite streamers, just calling out to the nostalgia of playing that game because he was streaming it one day. No longer exists,
Oh.
unfortunately. But yeah, good time. But that was it. And then the last category for me is MMOs. I played.
Yes.
Well, I played Achaea Dreams of Divine Lands. Played, quote unquote.
Wait, what? Say that again. What's that called?
Achaea Dreams of Divine Lands.
Never heard of that.
Well, I did mention earlier. It's the mud. It's the mud I was talking about.
It's the
earlier.
mud you talking about. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Just
No wonder I
because
didn't.
it was free. I played RuneScape. Back in the day. There was some summers we didn't have internet, so I used to bike to the local library. I was also not the only one. There was a whole crew of us, like middle schoolers, that would go to the library and play RuneScape. We used to bike to the library to play RuneScape, and then eventually I discovered there's another library, so I would bike. After my 1 hour at the first library was up, I would bike to the other library and do another 1 hour. And then I eventually played WoW for a while. I played Final Fantasy 14. Currently I play Lost Ark. So
You're still playing Lost Ark, right?
I am still playing Lost Ark, yeah.
How's it going?
It's fun. I don't put that much time into the dailies at this point.
Yeah.
Those have gotten a little boring, but I'll still do them if my friends do them, and we met, cool people playing it, so it's still fun. We're keeping up with end-game content.
Yeah, it was fun. I mean, it's very Diablo.
Yeah, for sure. I think it was interesting how blatantly they just tried to appeal to a bunch of different fans of different games.
Yeah, sure. Why not?
But actually, all those systems that they stole were like the bad systems, and
Oh, really? What do you mean?
yeah. So like the Diablo parts, they don't really like the loot dropping quickly reaches a point where it doesn't matter, right? Because like in Diablo, it's like, oh, you're looking for, there's at least a couple cool things you can look for that you get excited about when they drop, right?
Mhm.
In Lost Ark, it's pretty rare to have that because at best that just means you just found something that's worth a lot of money. You don't really get.
Yeah, usually you have to upgrade or
Yeah, exactly.
blacksmith your stuff.
So their systems they're like what I would say they're good systems, or like they're healthy systems, are the systems that they made on their own, and like the Diablo RNG drop stuff doesn't really translate, right? It just looks like Diablo, and it kind of feels like Diablo early on, but very quickly
Yeah.
once you get to the end game, it becomes quite different. Same with the Monster Hunter, like Guardian raids are clearly a Monster Hunter ripoff, or not. I guess ripoff is not the right word, but it's meant to look exactly like Monster Hunter, right? But
Top down or 3/4 speed.
yeah, but a lot of the actual Monster Hunter parts are the bad parts, and fighting the Guardian that they made is the good part, in my opinion, at least.
I see. Well, what are the Monster Hunter parts?
The Monster Hunter is the
Right.
Guardian raids, right? So like you,
Oh, you didn't think the Guardian raids were good?
the Guardian raids are good, but the Monster Hunter parts are not good. So like throwing a flare to find the Guardian, for example. like in
Okay,
Monster
okay,
Hunter,
I see. Yeah.
Throwing a pheromone to keep the monster from running away is like, I don't know. In my opinion, it's kind of what it's
Not needed.
not really that interesting, right?
Yeah, I could see that.
Like the monster's health not showing up is obviously, it's like there's a lot of things that like they work technically, but they're not really adding anything, and they're clearly just there because they took the inspiration directly from another game.
Yeah, it's like
And
another
those are
game.
the systems where it's like, okay, like these are not necessarily like super negative, but they don't really need to be here, right?
Yeah, I had trouble. I definitely had trouble with the gnome.
Yeah.
You don't know what their health is.
Yeah, but it makes sense because if you're, it's easier to do that if you're trying, because they're a small company as well, right? So it's easier to do that than to just try to do something different for the sake of being different, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you can iterate on your first, you can take the whole thing as a starting point, put it in your game, and then iterate upon it to make it better, even if some of the original ideas turn out to not really be necessary.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all about that. You can take other ideas. I mean, I think games should just build on each other and take stuff that works well and
Yeah,
iterate on it.
absolutely. But I also think there's a limit to how healthy that can be, right? Because at some point, if like certain genres of games, I think have really become stale in the past years. I think tactics is a big one. All tactics games these days feel like exactly Fire Emblem, right?
Yeah.
It's just like, oh,
Okay.
it's a story-driven game with difficult battles, characters that form some kind of relationship with each other. You have like this, you have some kind of king or like palace drama story,
And permadeath.
and yeah, permadeath and level up. I feel like there's very little change that comes out
Hasn't been anything
because,
new.
and that's not to say there's like no games that try to do that, but I think if you take the collective in the past 5 years or whatever, it's been very homogenous.
I basically hit a wall with tactics games. Like I haven't played them since a while back because I just was like, I don't. It's like a difficult puzzle to solve, but I don't feel good afterwards. I feel stressed out.
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
Yeah, I'm good.
I get that.
And speaking of MMOs, I played a bunch of MMOs when I was younger, and then I kind of swore off of them. I think I told you when I started playing Lost Ark. I was like, I don't really play MMOs, just because they never end. Keep going, and I can get totally addicted to them. I played a game called The Realm, which was at the time it was a Sierra game. The same people who made those adventure games I played, and it was like a 2D MMO that was really shitty, but everyone had a house, like automatically. Every character you make has a house, and you can put things in there and put things in your strongbox and like all kinds of, basically leaving your shit in a house. But other people could visit your house, and so basically there was a way to. What I liked about it is it was possible to rob other players' houses. Because you could go to anyone's house, you could be invisible if somebody else didn't have detect invisibility.
I see.
And you just wait for them to open the door and run in and grab stuff. It was great.
That sounds funny. That sounds a lot like survival games today, right? Like
yeah, it is kind of like that. Yeah. I was a real dick back then and would rob people's houses, and you could do some fun like. I ran a couple of fun scams on there where there was one that was really good where you convince someone that how to like do a dupe bug, like duplicate shit. And so I'd be like, hey, I know how to do this dupe bug. I'll show you how to do it. So first, like, put something in you want to, or put an amount of money in you want to double, and then do all these things. And one of the things was restarting your game, so you had to log out for this dupe to work. And while they were logged out, I'd put in whatever double thing into their box that they had tried to duplicate, and so they'd come back and be like, "Oh, it worked, great!" And then next time they did it, they put in all of their money, like millions of gold or whatever. Right. And of course, then they'd log out, and then I'd take it all.
A two-layered.
Have a ton of fun.
That sounds hilarious.
Yeah, I love that. And then I played some EverQuests. I played a lot of EverQuests and a little bit of World of Warcraft. But after EverQuest, I was like, I can't do this.
Yeah, I think EverQuest was right before my time. Like the MMOs I like dabbled in at that around the same era was like MapleStory.
MapleStory.
A little bit.
Did you play much of that?
Not really. This was before a bunch of the patches that made it like possible to level up, basically. So. I didn't really have the time to put in to actually experience much of the game.
Yeah, and with EverQuest, I played a ton of it, but didn't really like it. It was weird to me. It made me feel weird.
I guess I dabbled in a couple MMOs since then, but yeah, those are the big ones for me. I like you. I before Lost Ark, I also kind of swore off MMOs just cause, for a totally different reason, but just cause, well, I guess not for a totally different reason, but they kind of stopped being fun and there was too much social interaction involved. So
Too much social
Yeah.
interaction. I
but
usually think of that as the big advantage.
yeah,
Play with
I
your
get
friends,
that
so.
for most people, but I
But you would like
yeah
sometimes don't want to deal with
I'm
that.
largely anti-social interaction,
Okay.
especially with online strangers. So
Oh, it's strangers. Yeah, but yeah, I
Yeah.
was gonna say like you play Lost Ark with people all the time, right?
yeah, I play with yeah. So yeah, the social interaction is only with strangers. With friends, it's totally fine. Um,
I see. I see.
but even in Lost Ark, we definitely don't have 8 people, right, to do everything. So we end up having a party with like, it's like two
Okay,
queuing
that's-
League of Legends, right? Like you have 2 or 3 people that you're playing with, but then you have randoms, and
Yeah.
it gets stressful over time.
Yeah, I get that.
Okay, so I think about Kaiser, we're like an hour in, so we're definitely not going to get to
Covered a lot.
we're definitely not going to get to the actual topics.
I mean, I can record whenever, So when,
yeah, well,
I'll do
we'll see you
more.
back here tomorrow, I guess.
Okay, yeah, okay.
So I wanted to talk about what our goal with this podcast is, other than just having fun talking about games, right? As you can see,
Good video game talk.
yeah, as you can see, this can get out of hand very quickly as far as time goes. We have lots to talk about, but basically the idea is we just wanted to take some of the things we normally talk about and put it in this format, and hopefully it's interesting to someone out there.
Yeah.
So some of the things we talk about are like company organization, student organization. I'm really curious about how the game industry functions, right? How, from the outside, like how it functions both to address like the kind of concerns I have as a consumer, right? But also how it functions compared to, the tech industry, which is what I'm in for now, at least.
Yeah, and I can speak to some pretty different approaches to games, working at both Activision and Riot.
Oh yeah,
They were very different
I imagine the
in
attitude
what
is
they
very
were trying to
different.
do, I guess you'd say.
Yeah, so I love picking swim fans' brain on that kind of thing. So we'll probably have a lot of those conversations. We'll talk about high-level game design. That's mostly something I want to talk about. I've already said a couple of things just offhand here about what I think is good and bad and fun and not, and what kind of audiences to try to target. For example, the difference between the philosophy of League of Legends and Dota, or like in a broader scale, Riot as a whole compared to Dota and Magic and the games they kind of try to, and Valorant in some cases, although I don't know anything about Valorant. Versus
Yeah, me
CS:GO,
neither anymore.
or Overwatch.
Oh wait, Valorant is as the
Is the
Counter-Strike.
CS:GO / Overwatch
Yeah,
game, or slash, yeah.
that's been doing pretty well, right?
I think it is doing quite well.
I played it when it was in like alpha and beta.
Oh, nice. I see.
but then left.
I can't play any first-person games because I get motion sick. As of
Oh, really?
Yeah, as of
Interesting.
I started happening when I was maybe like 20-ish. So ever
Oh
since
wow,
then,
it happened late.
yeah,
Huh.
ever since because like I used to be fine. So like one of my favorite games I played like right before this started happening was like, well, this is third person, but it was like Saints Row 4. That was really fun, and I had no problem playing that. And I also played Minecraft in high school a little bit. That was fine, but sometime around like 2021, I just suddenly like could not play any of those games. Got like serious
man.
motion sickness. Yeah.
Bummer.
Well, I'm not a big shooting game enthusiast anyway, but yeah.
Yeah. But
So
all the walking simulators you can't do.
Oh yeah, for sure. So I guess that's like our one blind spot, which is like neither of us know anything about. Well, actually, maybe. Well, you did work on COD, so never mind.
Yeah, I worked on Call of Duty.
Never mind.
I mean,
That's
I
not-
played a ton of shooters for a while. I don't play them anymore.
I see.
But yeah, I played. I mean, I grew up playing Doom and Quake and Duke Nukem 3D.
Oh right, yeah. That's right.
And Dark Forces, Jedi Knights.
Can't
Do
say
you know
I've heard of
Dark
that one.
Forces? Okay. Early Star Wars games, and
Oh, I also
see.
played Battlefront. I played as a kid.
Oh sure, yeah,
Battlefront
the
2.
Star Wars game.
We used to borrow that from the local public library.
Oh wow,
if you can imagine that.
that's awesome. You could rent or get games for
Yep.
free, huh?
Yep. Well, you could
That's
you
great.
could rent them like a library book basically. But
Yeah. Huh.
so yeah, as a kid, I was fine. I played that quite a lot, and then at some point it just suddenly went away.
I like I said, I played a ton of shooters, and when I was at Activision, obviously I played
Mm-hmm.
a ton of Call of Duty, especially Modern Warfare 2, the original. Eventually, I just got tired of it. Like I got tired of the gameplay of shooting people in the face.
Yeah.
I want to do other stuff.
Understandable.
So I'm
Understandable.
like, okay, like, I'm tired of the constant violence. I don't know.
You know that's the original topic we were going to broach in depth today was skill-based matchmaking, and that actually comes, from what I understand, a lot from the COD community. So
Oh, does it?
yeah, I think so. I don't know too much about the details of its origins, but
Yeah, I don't know the because the publishers, Activision, and the developers, Infinity Ward, were like the developers very intentionally kept the publisher at arm's length, which
I see.
with good reason.
That makes sense. Yeah, Activision.
So I didn't know the
Gotcha.
details of their matchmaking, for
Gotcha.
example.
Gotcha.
But with Riot, although even then they are very secretive about the specifics.
Interesting. So Riot is also secretive, huh?
Oh yeah,
Like
sure.
even within itself. Interesting.
There's certain things like that, like
Hmm.
anything that you could easily like leak, and it would be a huge problem
Oh,
for the company.
okay.
I think
I
they
see.
need to come
That
to
I guess
secret-
that makes sense. Yeah, that makes
secret
sense.
enough.
That makes
But they do a pretty good job. I mean, they do make an effort to like let people know about the upcoming things they're working on, like the secret
Right.
teams, so to speak. Whereas at Activision, you would have never heard of it if you didn't know
I
about
see.
it. Like you wouldn't know if there was some secret thing being worked on.
Interesting. It's
Yeah.
fascinating. So like, well, I guess I'll get to this later. But one of my early influences. So one of the things I want to talk about is, yeah, like I said, high level game design. One of the things that really influenced me early on was Mark Rosewater, the lead designer at Wizards. In other words, the lead designer of Magic.
Mm-hmm.
Still has a column, I think, but had a column for a long time called Making Magic that I used to read because we didn't really have entertainment options back then. That went like straight up into in-depth detail about their entire design process. Like
okay.
exactly how, what the stages were, what the goal each stage were, how many people were on it, what kind of things got said. In post, after the new cards were released, he would like go through some of the initial designs and changes for some of the cards.
Huh.
So it was very transparent. He still is very transparent. That's
I'm sure other people on like the dev team of the card games working on. I'm sure they love that stuff.
but that's interesting. I'm curious to see what the effects of the different levels of transparency are. And
Yeah, I mean, there's pros and cons each, and I'm at a weird crossroads with that. I'm in a weird position of that for as a marketing person because
Right.
One of the big things that we're like kind of in charge of is making sure no bad or wrong stories come out about
Right.
things. So people leaking things is a concern.
right, for sure.
Although honestly, it's always the developer always and like this hardcore gamer community always makes a bigger deal out of leaks than they really are. Like in terms of their future sales or whatever,
Right,
it doesn't
of course.
really matter
Yeah.
unless it's like something leaked right before it launches and
Right.
it sucks,
Right. But it's still, yeah, that's a good point. Magic also had a similar, well, not really similar, but Magic had a problem for a long time with leaked cards, right? Upcoming cards. And
Yeah.
the thing is, like you said, there's really no effect on the leak.
Yeah, does it matter?
Yeah, because everything will be quote unquote leaked, right? But it's just that it changes the schedule.
Yeah.
Of like how you can announce it, because like Magic does a lot of things where it like partners with content creators to have exclusive previews, right? Like this podcast or this show or this tournament gets to have an exclusive preview that people tune in for of the new card, and if it's leaked, I guess the downside is like that kind of thing doesn't happen. But I guess that's a good
Right,
point.
okay, I see what you're saying.
That it really doesn't necessarily affect sales or whatever.
This is a little bit of a tangent, but did you have, so in my high school and I guess elementary school or junior high, there was a lot of people stealing magic cards out of people's lockers,
Mm,
other people's lockers, and so it was banned in our school.
I
Magic,
see.
like we could not play it openly. Did you have anything like that?
No, the Magic player bit was actually quite small. So
Okay,
I played
you had a
Magic.
lot of nerds.
Well, we had a lot of nerds, but we were mostly Yu-Gi-Oh players actually. The Yu-Gi-Oh player base was large, and the Magic player base was kind of small. In my grade, I only met like 10 total, maybe like 5 to 10, and a lot of those like I got them into it. I ended
Okay,
up
yeah.
I ended up making friends with like some some people that were a grade above me.
Uh-huh.
I just like randomly joined them because I saw them playing. But other than that, in total, I ran a meeting like 15 players out of 500 or whatever, 2,000
Oh,
maybe.
okay.
I totally forget. 500 I think is per grade. Um, so that wasn't really a problem. I don't think we had a problem with theft because we were kind of like super academically focused and also generally rich and did not like it was not cool to be a thug in our school, I guess is the best
Interesting.
best way to put
But
it.
you said you grew up. Money was an issue.
Yeah, for us, but not for the school necessarily.
Ah, okay.
So
Interesting.
and it was less of an issue in high school because well, we don't have to get into my whole family history, but it was less of an issue in high school because we moved in high school because my dad found a job that like paid relatively well, so it was less of an issue at
Mm.
that point. Yeah.
That's when you moved. You were in the Dakotas.
Yeah, I was in North Dakota until ninth grade, from second to ninth grade, and then I moved to California, to the Bay Area. In
That's a
ninth grade.
big change.
Yeah, it was a great change, but yeah, very big. Um,
Yeah, I mean North Dakota, I get it though. There's not a shit ton. There's not a lot to do.
yeah, it was a nice. It was. I mean, the adults at least were like actually nice. It was a good experience. I don't know if it. I don't know that it'd be a good experience now. um, but back in the day, it was actually pretty good. It was not bad. The adults anyway. Kids, different story.
Yeah, okay.
Although I mean, I had great friends as well.
I spent a lot of summers in Fargo because my dad and mom were split when I
Mm.
was pretty young, and he lived in Fargo, and we mostly lived in Minneapolis. But I'd go out there, and it kind of sucked because I basically didn't know anybody.
Yeah,
My friends weren't there.
yeah, that does
But
suck.
so I replaced it. Basically, me and my brothers replaced friends with like constantly renting movies and video games.
Right.
So I pretty much like played every shitty game that was on the Super Nintendo during that time. Like
Yeah,
it
makes
was,
sense.
I played some really bad uh, stuff you probably never heard.
I had a very similar experience with the Game Boy Advance because
Okay,
I guess I can't really.
that was the
There's
console you had, right?
there's no way to talk my way out of this, I suppose. But I had access to, or like, okay, never mind.
You
I
were
can't.
you
I
were
don't.
able to acquire games
I don't
legally.
think I could talk about this. Actually, I don't think this is a good idea. Never mind. Forget I said
Okay,
anything.
you legally acquired some games.
Yes. Whatever the reason is, I played a lot of Game Boy Advance games.
Okay.
That's what I got to say. Um,
Okay. Yeah, you had one of those carts with like all the ISOs on it or whatever, the ROMs.
I have no idea what you're talking about,
Okay.
unfortunately.
All right,
Um,
fine. No one's gonna care.
can't
Okay,
yeah
whatever.
can't say that I understand what you're saying. I'm not even sure that
Okay.
you're
Yeah, me
speaking.
neither. I don't know what I'm just spotting random nonsense.
Um, oh, that was us talking about marketing monetization. But yeah, I guess I don't have to go through the rest of this list. But that's an idea of what we talk about a lot and what we hope to talk about here. We'll also just talk about experiences that we've had and our recent experiences playing games. I'm kind of curious what your perspective on Lost Ark was, for example,
Oh yeah.
since you dropped off basically at the end of tier 2, which is like 2/3 or like 3/4 of the way through the story part of the game, but way before quote unquote the real game starts, right?
Yeah, I didn't.
But
I didn't get to it.
and that's totally fine. I mean, I think that's intentional, but I'm curious, what you liked about it and what your experiences were. So that's the kind of thing we'll
Sure.
talk
Do you want
about.
me to save that for now?
Yeah, let's save it.
Okay.
We'll compare the experiences because we are also way deep into our time here.
Yeah, I should probably go eat dinner and not worry. Uh,
So
and I'd love to talk about speedrunning too. Like,
oh yeah,
I got a lot to say about that.
so the two, for our next, I suppose for our next two episodes, we'll be talking about in whichever order the two topics we have planned were speedrunning, because you are part of a speedrunning community, right?
Yeah,
And I've
a speedrunning community of like 40-year-olds, but yeah.
well, it, communities are communities. It's probably better than the speedrunning community of 14-year-olds. If I had
Yeah,
to
it's way
guess.
better. Like everyone is nice. And
Yeah.
helps each other.
So I'm also interested in I don't think I ever will actually perform a speed run, but I watch it. I'm interested in it from a number of levels. So we'll talk about that. The other thing we were talking about is skill-based matchmaking and this is like a really boring discourse that's been had a bunch of times, but we'll briefly cover like the reasons for skill-based matchmaking. But the angle I want to come at it from is I think there's a very legitimate reason why people don't want skill-based matchmaking all the time. I think there's like a very legitimate feeling that as a designer you should address, right?
What's that? You mean like it feels bad to lose half the time? Or
Well, maybe. I think there's
we
a
don't.
couple levels, but I think one thing is like people want to have the feeling of being the best player in the lobby sometimes, right?
Oh, sure.
And I think like yes, you can't do that all the time without ruining nine other people's experiences,
Right.
But I do think that that's a legitimate desire that you should try to tap into, right? Because that's kind of your job as a designer. It's like, what do people want, and how can I give them an experience to tap into that? So I want to explore a little bit about how we can make that happen. What kind of games do make that happen, and for example, does it get boring? Can it even be done? Are there some
Right. Yeah. Is there a
ideas
way
that-
to scratch that itch that
Yeah.
doesn't
exactly
ruin it for
exactly.
everyone else?
I'm interested to hear. You wrote a bunch of things, people that are your influences.
Oh yeah, right.
I'm interested to hear about.
So as for the shape, the texture of this podcast, some influences I have from a content side, just so that if you recognize these people, you can maybe understand that there's going to be some thread that links the way I talk, at least, or the way I think about things to them. Maro is Mark Rosewater. I already mentioned him. Probably my biggest
Right, okay.
influence. Like I said, he's the one that really gave me an insight with his column that I used to read all the time when I was, and this is way back. This is when I was maybe 11, right? He was already doing this into like game design, and I didn't really seriously think about myself as a game designer, but just the idea, the process was interesting. So probably my biggest influence from that angle. But at this point, I think he's definitely not perfect. Like I can understand that there's some ways I definitely want to be different from what he does, but I still think he's very solid and again probably the biggest influence.
LSV. That's a magic person.
That is a magic person. LSV is Luis Scott Vargas. He's also a content creator. So in high school, I used to just consume a bunch of magic content because there was just no content to consume, and it was written, so it was easy to do with that internet. So LSV is another. He's also a game designer. He works at Direwolf, actually.
I met him.
At some point. Oh, you met him. Interesting. So I
did,
also
yeah.
met him, coincidentally. LSV and I are
Hey.
Facebook friends.
Oh wow.
He has no idea,
not
I'm
bad.
sure. But
It's no idea.
long story, yeah. So yeah, I'm a big fan of his way of thinking, pretty much. He's also just very entertaining. He's also a game designer. He talks about stuff like Maro. Like I think, at least on the stream persona side of things, like he's also a podcaster. On that persona, like I think, there's definitely ways I want to be different from him. But overall, again, I think big influence on me. Sajam is a more recent one. Sajam is so you watch
Will It Kill
Sajam's
guy.
Will It Kill with us. Yeah. Sejam is a streamer commentator for fighting games. These days, mostly a streamer. I don't think he does that much commentary anymore. He's talked about why as well. Very similar. He does a lot of videos about things like about things that happen on Twitter, basically, with a fighting game perspective. Big fan. And I can go through the rest of these pretty fast. Core A Gaming, just a channel very much in the same vein as these. Also a fighting game bent, if you want to check it out. And just for other interests as far as content, for speedrunning, there's like Tomato Anus, who does speedrunning explained videos that I think are really good. I think he has a good
really?
message.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah, I think I may have posted a couple times, but I can send you a few more. Big fan of the videos. And then just over time, there's been a lot of personalities in the competitive scene. Like I closely follow a lot of competitive games, so Dota, League of Legends, StarCraft. Things that come up here and there that I think are strong influences to me. Probably a lot of
this Tomato Anus guy, he does like explainers on
yes,
speedruns,
yes,
huh?
he does very similar
cool.
to the One Short Eye type video.
One Short Eye, yeah.
What about you? Do you have any content influences?
No, I was trying to think of that, and I don't. Nothing comes to mind.
You're your own.
I should think about it.
You're your own.
My own.
You're
my
equivalent
own.
to no one.
Yeah. I've kind of struggled over the years to find like a personality I like, and it maybe just like a side effect of my misanthropy, but
Sure.
I haven't found anyone
Understandable, yeah.
really liked hearing like some of the.
I really like watching speedruns, like the best, the games done quick and RPG limit break and stuff.
And there's some people in there I like, but yeah, no one I really watch consistently or like content creators I follow that I can think of. I'll think about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Somebody. There's probably someone that you're just not thinking of, so I'm interested to hear who it is.
Yeah, I'll think about that.
Okay. I guess this is pretty clear by this point. This was supposed to be at the beginning of the intro before we got mega sidetracked, but I think the two of us cover a lot of bases from different angles, right? Like I'm very much for example, earlier you said that you don't like MMOs because they never end, but for me, I like MMOs because they never end. I actually really don't like it when games end. I actually don't play a lot of single player games for that reason, right? And similarly,
do you feel like empty afterwards or what?
Not really. I feel like I want to do more. If I had fun playing the game, I want to keep playing the game, right? That's how I feel. But that's not universally true. Like if I like the story, I'm glad when it ends, right? I think a story cannot, or a story
can't be good forever.
Probably shouldn't go on forever necessarily. There are exceptions, but so like if I play a game because I like the story, I'm fine when it ends. But if I like the gameplay a lot, I tend to not like it when it ends, right?
I see. Yeah, that makes sense.
So that's one example. The other part where we come at it from different angles is you play a lot of different games. Right? You're excited to try all kinds of different games, especially single-player games, right? And I tend to not do that. I tend to, for me to like play, to really get into a single-player game, I have to kind of be pretty sure that I'm really into it, and I'll drop them pretty fast if I don't like it, and I don't tend to try it that many. And usually I want to play the same game a lot, right? So
I definitely have that thing about if it doesn't end, I worry that I'll never stop playing it.
Oh yeah, for sure. But isn't that the dream,
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. I want to see everything that's out there.
We should probably talk about that at some point. These two different styles.
Well, and it's actually that feeds into speedrunning too. Like the games I speedrun are games that I like the atmosphere of. I like hanging out in those worlds.
Right.
And so I'm like, I've done everything in the game. I know exactly how to beat it every time.
Right.
How else can I continue playing this?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's an interesting topic for the speedrunning section, actually. And then the other thing, the other complement we have is our work backgrounds, right? Like you work in
Right,
marketing and in game companies. I work in engineering and non-game companies. You know, I guess between the two of us, we don't really have an actual game designer. I consider myself somewhat.
You've made some stuff, right?
Yeah, you know.
I was gonna ask
Tips
you, like, have
Fedora.
you ever like made something or?
Yeah. So no. The answer is I have never. There's nothing I've made that has reached production as far as like game design wise. But I've done a lot of. That's not true. I've done I have a cube. So in Magic.
Oh yeah.
Magic the Gathering, there's a format called cube where.
Yeah, I know.
Where you basically, instead of drafting from a booster pack, you make a set of, somewhere between 360 to however many, usually like 400 something cards, and you basically draft from that. It's like basically a customized draft experience. So I have made that. I have played that with people. People thought it was fun. But that's about the extent of my completed projects. But I do have a lot of designs that I've started and then abandoned, usually because I don't want to implement them. Like I look forward and I think I have to implement them.
This is going to be shitty to implement.
But I do have a lot of designs. We can talk, if you're curious, I can share. So for example, the Final Fantasy Tactics Advance mod is one of those types.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, I'm interested.
Yeah. So, if you're interested, I can share what those look like, why I made them, what my overarching philosophies are as a designer. But I'm not, by no means would I consider myself an actual game designer yet. We'll see how that goes, but that is something I'm interested in and I like to try to do. So,
I mean, I definitely dabbled with it too. Like when I was a kid, I made a couple of text adventure games in BASIC.
Oh, I did too. Yeah, not in BASIC,
okay,
but
cool.
I made one on my mom got like some random graphing calculator that she didn't use and gave to me, and I made text adventure games in that. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Yeah, that was a good time for like games on calculators. I remember doing a lot of that in high school, like having.
Yep.
There was like a really popular drug dealing game on
see?
calculators in high school.
Can't say I remember that one, but makes sense.
Where you'd like, it's basically just it's like a resource management worker replacement game kind of thing, and as you go, you upgrade to harder drugs and bigger organizations. I don't know, it's fun. But the text adventures I made, a couple of my friends did too. Like actually, probably the best birthday present I ever got was when my friends made me like a really short text adventure game that was like about my birthday. And that was
nice. That's cute.
Yeah. Like my friends growing up, they also were into adventure games, so I had a lot of people also interested in that.
Interesting. Yeah, I made a text adventure game just because I was bored in class. But yeah, I've definitely, even when I was a kid. And you mentioned that you made some custom games in like Warcraft maps, right?
Yeah, I worked on some Warcraft maps, and a friend of mine and I worked on some Duke Nukem 3D maps. So those are difficult to make. So we never really made anything particularly good, but we spent a lot of time on it.
Yeah, for sure. In a lot of those times, I was more interested in like competing. So like I made, I've written like guides for stuff. Even in Hearthstone, I wrote a short guide.
Oh really? Are you on Game Pass?
No. I just posted on Reddit. I was not. It was definitely a one-time thing that I just wanted to do because I thought it was fun.
Okay.
Definitely did not try to monetize it anyway or post it anywhere legit. But I have not had that many things reach production. I hope, I do intend to work on more of those things, and we'll see how that goes. But
yeah, that's something to talk about. And also, if you want to discuss the topic on one episode about the gacha game world, we could definitely address that. If you
what gacha game world?
Just gacha games in general, and hentai games, I guess.
Sure. You want to talk about that?
I mean, we could. It's something we both know about, or
Yeah,
assume
well,
you
it's
know
where
about
we met, actually, right?
That's right. So
We met on a hentai gotcha game. We are adults, I promise. But
yeah.
well, to be fair, I am like very much pro. Well, I'm like anti. What's the right words? Yeah, I'm like very anti prudishness. So
Okay, sure.
I don't have a I'm not ashamed of talking about anything. But
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but
I'm fine with it.
yeah, so we actually met in a guild basically in a hentai gotcha game, like 2 years ago at this point,
Uh,
something like that.
yeah,
So
something like that.
that's how I got it. So
Yeah,
we
and
can.
you were the leader, right?
I was the leader. I still am the leader, although I'm
Oh,
pretty
do you
much.
still do it?
I don't really do anything anymore. Some people, I understand. There's some sentiments that I should probably be doing more, but uh,
Do
it
you
is what it is.
participate in the
I
raids or
do,
whatever?
yeah, I still do.
Oh, okay.
In fact,
Okay.
I have
You
to
still
go
put
do
in
that
points.
within the next hour and 10 minutes. So,
Oh
um,
shit. Yeah, yeah.
but yeah, so we can definitely talk about that. We also approach gotcha games, I think, in a very opposite way. So that would be interesting.
Oh, okay.
I'm also really gotcha games. I mentioned earlier that a lot of games I feel like are just very repetitive. No, like tactics games. I think gotcha games fall in the same category. I mean, there's just so many now, and they're all made so seemingly like quickly and haphazardly that
Uh-huh.
I feel like they're very stale in many ways.
You still there's like a lot of cash grab stuff that's just
I
not.
think they're all cash grabs.
I mean, it seems that way. I mean,
There's
it's basically combining a slot machine with game.
Yeah, there's a couple exceptions. Like, for example, like FGO, at this point is not new, but it was like a front runner, right? So it doesn't really count. Like Genshin, actually is a gotcha game, but in my opinion, like actually has some what's the word? Ambition. It's like an ambitious gotcha game, right? That
Yeah, it's got way more to
Yeah.
it. I mean, it's
for example. But I think, if you were to take all of them and put them in a list and pick one out, like the actual cool gotcha games are like the top, 0.5%, and the rest is just all
holy
the
crap.
same. Yeah, that's enough complaining about that.
Okay.
So yeah, we can for sure talk about that. I guess we have a ton of ideas to think about here. To talk
Yeah, I
about.
mean, I hope we. I mean, we kind of jumped all over the place. I'm hoping we can turn it into something,
Yeah.
something listenable.
So I guess the last thing I'll say before we end is, from my perspective, and feel free to jump in with anything you have here, is what high level, what kind of attitude are we going to take here? I think there's two things I really believe in with this kind of medium. One is that, I'll just say, like, no takes are final, right? Like, in other words, I'm not here to kind of like spew hot takes and then defend them and say that anyone disagrees with me is wrong, right? In fact, I'm very much here to look for new information and change my mind on a lot of things, right?
Right. Okay.
And I don't think that in general, in society, I think that's often perceived as a bad thing, and I think that should not be the case. And I'm very happy to be wrong, right? So I'm hoping that if you're a listener and in the future you disagree with me on something, don't assume that just because I had a position at that point that that's like something I believe with every fiber of my being. And if you disagree with me, we're totally incompatible. I'm happy to listen to any new information that comes up and change my mind if that's what it takes.
Yeah,
But-
that makes sense. I mean, I feel similarly.
Yeah. And similarly,
I don't know what I'm talking about all the time.
right. Similarly, if we ever talk about like news, right, for example, or like recent events, we're not, or at least I'm not here to present the truth, right? Like, I'm not here to say this is the way it is. My opinion is final. I'm totally understand that they'll be wrong a lot of the time, and again, I hope to gather new information as much as possible.
Okay, makes sense.
And sometimes, and in a very similar way, and sometimes I want to just present new facts and new ideas without coming away with an opinion or a conclusion, right? Like, so
Right.
so if League of Legends does things one way, Dota does things the other way, and I tend to say something like, I think they're both totally valid, and I understand that can be annoying sometimes, right? Because you're like, well, don't you believe in something? I mean, I know what I prefer, right? But what I prefer, the things I prefer doesn't necessarily mean the things I don't prefer are invalid, for example. So
Yeah, it doesn't mean it's like a absolute better one way or the other.
yeah, exactly. But that doesn't mean I won't get upset about things as well. That also does happen. And the last thing I'll say is I will try to avoid being condescending towards any group. And by group, I don't necessarily mean like, the political groups necessarily, but it just mean like casual players, for example, or
Oh, sure.
Children, or not necessarily children, but like 14-year-olds, right? I'll do my
Sure,
best to not make fun of groups like that, because at the end of the day, we're here to play games, right? We're not voting or whatever. So
Yeah, there's all kinds of players, game
yeah,
players.
exactly.
Not a best one.
I'll try.
Although I will speak badly about kids.
Yeah, I think I will too. But I just want to say that I don't necessarily mean it to say to. I will try my best to avoid speaking badly about groups of people in condescending ways.
All right. Yeah.
We'll see how that goes. That's a work in progress.
Yeah, those perspectives make sense. I feel pretty similarly, so that works for me. I'll think about if there's anything else.
Cool. And I'm sure
Wanna
no
make
one will
sure
listen. Even if at some point in the future, if there's listeners, no one will listen to this episode. So we'll have to bring that up again.
Okay.
All right. I think that's all.
Did we do it?
I think we did do it.
Okay. Let's do this again.
Let's do this again. I'll see you some next time, dear listener, friends.